Our next discussion is about franchises. Franchises is a method by which a larger corporation has many different branches or many different operations or many different franchises that run a business that's really part of the larger organization, but also has some independence. Franchising, as you can see over here, is an important method of distributing goods and services to the public. One example, if there's a major chain restaurant like Starbucks or McDonald's or something like that, there is a central office that runs the show for the entire group, for the entire Starbucks, for all Starbucks, but the individual are run by franchisors, is run by franchises, and they own each individual business. Now they have an agreement, they have a management agreement with their parent corporation, but fundamentally they run their own businesses within, of course, certain contractual responsibilities that both sides have. A franchise is established when the franchisor, namely Starbucks, let's say, licenses the franchisee, which is the owner of the individual Starbucks, to use the franchisor's trade name, trademarks, commercial symbols, patents, copyrights, other types of property. Individual Starbucks, if I decide to open up a Starbucks in the mall and I get permission from Starbucks, the central agent, well, now I can use the Starbucks name, I can use the Starbucks logo, I can use the Starbucks trademark colors, I can use their recipes, I can use pretty much everything. I can call my drinks the caramel frappo, whatever, frappuccino, whatever. I can call anything because now I have permission to use essentially all of the Starbucks intellectual property. So the franchisor and the franchisee are usually established as separate businesses, separate corporations. There is the big Starbucks, and then there's me, who is just running the individual Starbucks with my own business. The advantages, there are many advantages of franchising, and that is the franchisor can reach lucrative new markets. The franchisor, in other words, Starbucks, can, rather than having to go set up shop in far-flung places, if they want to open up a Starbucks, if they want to be able to tap the Nova Scotia market or the Bogota market or the Moscow market or whatever it is, it might not be that easy for them to go set up shop there. They might not know the local people. They might not really know what to do in that area. But if you get a local person to do it for you, then it becomes a lot easier. The franchisee, namely the person who owns the local Starbucks, has access to the franchisor's knowledge and resources. And the franchisee runs an independent business, and the consumers are ensured of uniform product quality because you have the same standards that are applied. Starbucks' central office makes sure that its general quality control is applied in all individual franchises. Of course, it might not work 100% like that, but at least that's the theory. And of course, the central business can advertise, and this advertising now helps all of the franchisees. You've got, really, a franchise starts with a franchise agreement. And the franchise agreement has two parties. You've got the franchisor, who's the licensor, in other words, the person giving the license. Starbucks, the central component, the central agency in our case, gives me, the person who's running the Starbucks franchise, the license to use trademarks, service marks, trade secrets, and of course, more than just that, other things like patents, copyrights, whatever other type of intellectual property may be applicable. And there are many different types of franchises. One type of franchise is the distributorship franchise, where the franchisor manufactures a product and licenses somebody to distribute the product to the public. The example they give over here, Ford Motor Company manufactures automobiles, and franchises, in other words, individual dealerships, are independently owned dealers, and they sell them to the public. There are many examples of food distributorship franchises, where you have a pretzel manufacturer in Pennsylvania that may make different pretzel bags, and then you have different distributors. Some actually might sell the exact same pretzel as Utz, whereas another distributor might sell the same product as hers, just based on who is the distributor. The distributor just gets permission from the central office to distribute these particular food products. So a distributorship franchise is simply where the central component makes it, and then the distributor has the ability to sell it down in the stream of commerce. Then you've got the processing plant franchise, where the franchisor provides a secret formula or secret process, secret recipes, and then the individual franchisee actually manufactures it. It's one more step removed than the distributorship. In the distributorship, the parent company makes everything, whereas in the processing plant, it's the parent company that just gives the recipe or gives the secret or gives the process to the franchise, and the franchise then goes ahead and makes the product. One example, of course, is that Coca-Cola. They license regional bottling companies to manufacture and distribute Coke. They give the Central Coke in Atlanta, may give some other bottling company in Connecticut or California or wherever the secret recipe, whatever that might be, and then they go ahead and use the secret recipe to maybe they give them even some ingredients or whatever it is, but the franchisor, in other words the processing plant, takes the recipe, manufactures the products, and then goes ahead and distributes it or sells it themselves. Then we've got a chain-style franchise, where a franchisor licenses the franchisee to make and sell its products from a retail outlet serving an exclusive territory. Here is the example of the restaurant franchise. Pizza Hut is the example they give over here. The one I was discussing before is Starbucks. Same idea, where it's not that the central Starbucks agency is actually making the coffee. They're not taking, in Seattle, they're not in that huge Starbucks building in Seattle. They're not sitting there and making 3 million gallons of coffee every day and then shipping it around the country. What they're doing is everybody is making the coffee. All the Starbucks are making their coffee in-house with their own machines, but Starbucks is just giving them the right to use the Starbucks intellectual property, maybe some recipes, logos, trademarks, whatever it is. And they also might give them an exclusivity within a particular area. They might say, okay, in this city you're the only one that has the right. Now, of course, if you've ever walked through New York City or some other big cities, you'll know that Starbucks doesn't have a very big exclusivity range. Very often you'll have Starbucks that are right across the street from each other or within a couple of blocks of each other. But again, that's up to the individual franchisor and franchisee agreement. There could be an exclusive territory, but there doesn't necessarily have to be an exclusive territory. Then there is the area franchise, where the franchisee is granted the authority to sell its own franchises, sometimes called a sub-franchisor. A franchise, for example, let's say Starbucks decides they don't want to have to control all the thousands and thousands of Starbucks that appear across the country, so Starbucks will say, okay, we're going to sell the right to run all the Texas Starbucks to Texas Starbucks Incorporated. And then Texas Starbucks Incorporated will go ahead and hire or distribute to other franchises around the state. So in other words, you're giving the people the right not only to sell, but you're giving somebody the right to actually create and manage sub-franchises. So that's what franchises are. Now let's take a look at some of the rules that govern franchises. Many states have enacted statutes that require franchisors to make specific disclosures to the franchisees. You obviously want to make sure that the franchisees, the people who are going to be investing in actually building the restaurant or building the plant or building whatever the case may be, you want to make sure that they understand what they're doing. And the series of rules that applies to these is called the Uniform Franchise Offering Circular, or the UFOC. The FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, also has rules. Those are talking about state rules. State rules that the uniform rule is something that's enacted by various states. Then you've got federal rules that apply to franchises. And the FTC is the Federal Trade Commission, which of course is a federal administrative agency, and they require franchisors also to make pre-sale disclosures. So in other words, there are state rules and there are federal rules that require that the franchisee, the person establishing the franchise, will actually be able to understand what he or she is getting into. The franchisor has to disclose assumptions underlying any estimates and hypothetical data. For example, if I'm deciding whether to open up a Starbucks, and Starbucks tells me, well, you're going to probably make $100,000 a year for the first 5 years, and then when you really get rolling, you'll make $200,000. Well, how do they know that? So they have to give them the explanation for why they're making that assumption and how they know that that assumption is accurate. If projections are based on actual past data, then the franchisor has to disclose that data. Where did they get that data? How did they collect that data? And the franchisor has to provide a mandatory precautionary statement explaining that things aren't guaranteed and what the possible risks are.